Let's get started. Well, look, today's topic is a very timely one. It's B2B portals for industrial manufacturing, how to deliver real value and revenue growth in 2025. So perhaps you might be joining because your portal perhaps feels outdated. Self-service is causing a bit more of a headache than good. You might be looking to start from scratch. Anyway, wherever you're coming from in your portal project, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to be sharing some practical advice and some proven technologies with insights from experts to help you balance the business capabilities with the customer expectations, which we all know are ever changing. So a few housekeeping before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and we'll share the recording with you on Monday. You'll find additional resources in the Docs tab just to the right-hand side, including a very relevant white paper for what we'll be discussing today, assessing the ROI of B2B portals, which we put together with Trim. We'll also have time for Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. So please do feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Okay. And also worth noting, we'll be putting a poll together as well to obviously get everybody involved. So if we just start the poll now. So the question that we want to ask you are, what challenges are you facing from your B2B portal? So you should just see the poll tab notification go off. So while we gather some responses, I'd like to invite our speakers to come and join me on stage. Excellent. Welcome. Janinka, please could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your area of expertise?
Yeah, thanks, Alice. Thanks for having us, and thank you all for joining. My name is Janinka. I work with the agency called Trim, and we've been around the block, so to speak, for 30 years. In the past 30 years, we've built numerous portals, and we specialize in building digital solutions for the high-tech industry. So industrial manufacturers are in the right place for us. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, welcome, Janinka. And Matt, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you specialize in?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Matt Alberts. I'm the VP of Solution Consulting here at Commerce Tools. And what we focus on is building a foundation for commerce for our consumer and our business-to-business customers, and all sorts of mixed transactions in there. So a substantial amount of our business is really focused on that B2B segment and manufacturers, distributors, a variety of other companies like that. And really it's about providing the foundational technology that comes together and really builds out the capabilities necessary to support your customers and your field sales associates.
Amazing. Welcome, Matt. And Dominic, a fellow Magnolian, if you could give us a brief introduction to your area.
Yeah, hey, my name is Dominic Düning. I'm head of strategic accounts at Magnolia. I'm responsible and helping important clients and prospects in the world of the combination of the best tools and the best partners in the world. So that's why I'm here.
Amazing. Well, look, welcome and thanks for joining. Now seems like a good time to revisit the poll. So please do vote if you haven't had a chance to yet. But I can clearly see so we've actually got quite a few people that don't currently have a B2B portal in place. So yeah, you're in a great place for getting started. Bringing content and commerce together is a hot topic. So Matt, that's obviously great in your world, and of course Dominic, and also difficulty integrating relevant systems. So yeah, I think these are some really interesting areas that let's focus on those areas in our answers a little bit later on. So I think to get us started, I think a good question to ask the team is, why do industrial manufacturers need a state-of-the-art portal now? And this is obviously perfect for the people that are looking to start building one from scratch. So Dominic, did you want to kick us off?
Yeah. From my perspective, we are experience a fundamental change in the generation of all of the relevant people in the procurement. So which means that now the key positions are placed and filled with people which know to use tools and know how to have a good customer journey, so to say. So it's important to, especially in B2B, show this kind of users a complete journey, because the products are complex, because the decisions are maybe complex. So they expect the same that they are experienced in B2C, for example, now in the B2B world. So that's the thing. So I think we have to face and deliver such of this experience to this group of people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, as you say, in the B2C world, people expect fast and high quality in interactions. So no, that's a really great point. And Matt, what about from your area? Why do you think it's important now?
Yeah, I certainly agree with Dominic. And I would add that, what we're seeing is we saw so many changes over the last number of years, both generationally and also circumstances in the world, that really have driven our customers and industrial manufacturers specifically to look at new markets or to consider additional products, services, and capabilities that really deliver value down to their customers. So what they're finding is that as they look at these things, it's this idea that it's a challenge to communicate all that down within your existing field selling organization. Plus, you have then the dynamic that Dominic spoke of, which is that the research activities and the exploration and the discovery of information and the collaboration is just expected in a much different way. So we see a lot of these things coming together, and people recognizing that they can be more effective and make the individuals that they employ and their coworkers more effective at selling and driving a higher value conversation than dealing with some of the more commoditized operations that everyone's very, very comfortable with.
Yeah, really, really valid point. And what about yourself, Janinka?
Yeah, I basically see two reasons why companies are looking for portal solutions. And one is they need to reduce the cost of serving. So what they're doing and digitizing processes is a ways of making everything more efficient and working with your customers and clients more efficient. So that's one. And the other one is if you really want to deliver growth and stand out in the current market, it's also about differentiating yourselves. And if you look at that strategic angle, then choosing a portal and kind of making yourself stand out from the market is one way to really boost your customer experience and set yourself apart. And if you look at a research done by the Harvard Business Review, they actually found that excellent customer experiences will actually lead to growth. So if, for example, on a scale from 1 to 10, you have the best customer experience, so either a 9 or a 10, it will increase your turnover with a client with 140%. So it will help you drive bottom line growth. And if you're more in the services business, it will also help you keep a client longer. So it will reduce them leaving. So that's, I think, the two strategic angles from which a lot of organizations are now coming. And I really completely agree with Dominic as well. Another strategic change that's happening now is that new generations, so millennials, for example, and Gen Z, are in the buying decision-making unit, so the decision-making unit there. And what we see from research there, it was done by Gartner, I presume, 44% of them don't even pick up the phone anymore. So where we used to have sales-driven, people-driven, key account management-driven sales, they are doing their research in a fundamental different way. And we need to be able to serve them the way they would like to be served. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. So for those that are looking to sort of build a business case out for portals and answered, they don't have one in place. I think that is some really good reasons why you should look to invest in one. So really good points. So, okay, cool. So I think we've established the why, and what I'd like to move on to now is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see manufacturers, having with their B2B portals today? I think, Janinka, it would be great to start with you, considering all of the experience that you've got with running these projects.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call it a challenge, but kind of a barrier to starting with it is, especially in high tech and in manufacturing, where you have low volumes, a lot of engineering, so a lot of technical, complex products. The idea is that it's not possible for us. We need sales. We need a person to help guided selling, basically. If you look at it from that angle, I don't think that's true, because in today's day and age, it's also possible to use digital and to create digital tools to do two things. One, standardize and scale your production on the one hand, so modularize. And then on the other end, in the experience part, you can really create a personalized experience building on those modules. So really, creating the best experience on those products. And you can digitize that and use that in your sales. So it becomes more of a guided selling where you configure your solutions, where you can add and translate that into the best digital experience instead of a barrier to entry, I'd say.
Excellent, excellent. And I wonder, Dominic, do you have any thoughts on that as well? Around making kind of complex products feel a little bit more intuitive online?
Exactly. Well, Jarinka just pointed out that guided selling, it's a very important thing. So, which means guidance, you need guidance typically not in from one fits all. Guidance can be from different tools, from different angles, from different systems, like to say. So, this combination, non-monolithic topic, which is everywhere. I always have in pitches some kinds of discussions about greenfield approach. So you build your own architecture on the greenfield. From my perspective, greenfield not exist, which means that there is everywhere a tool which is involved in. It's sometimes a legacy PIM tool, whatever. At the end, maybe a CSV file which is imported every night. So the thing is to solve this guided selling situation means that you have to get all the information in one place, all the information to build some kind of a foundation to present everything. So that's the thing, and that's sometimes the challenges we have in some kind of projects, right?
Yeah. If I can add an example, Alice, that might help to bring it to life. A client of ours who's in trailers, so specific custom trailers for everything you want to move from A to B, basically. They came to us with a question, how do we standardize our production? Because we would like to ramp up and standardize our production facility so that we can scale. That's one part of the question. The other part of the question is we would like to be able to identify who's in market prior to them actually being in the market. So what we did with them is build a configure to quote in this situation. You can also have configure to order solutions, but in this case, it was configure to quote solution that did two things for them. They standardized their production, and I think it led them to about 80%, while giving customers the experience that they could tailor their trailer to their specific needs. And in the marketing and sales department, you would have the purchasing managers see what they would have to put in their budget for next year earlier on. So it's a win-win on both sides. And that is a very complex technical product, or at least a lot of different aspects that you have to tie in together, where digital can play a fundamental role.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, I wonder if you've got any thoughts about looking at it from kind of that commerce side as well.
Yeah, certainly, you imagine that in our world, we're always thinking about, completing that order or getting things through. But as we start thinking about people who are just getting started, or again, going back into that complexity circumstance, we do think about the quoting process. We also think about how you can shift. You shift and think about the individuals that are actually consuming the information coming across, what makes them the most comfortable and gives them the most confidence in the buying process to ultimately move through that buying process with you. So you get a great example around, again, that discovery, that identification, almost that budget process of establishing trust and confidence that they can see the opportunity for getting what they would want or they would need. But we then look at that and say, a typical barrier is, the field sales are typically involved in this interaction. Well, again, our younger seller prefers to spend a bit of time consuming the information independently, using the digital tools in front of them, right? So early adopters of B2B portals are commonly thinking about those operational challenges around what's my invoice, what's my balance, who's in my portal, who can interact with me. But then there's also the quick on the assisted selling side, which is how do I then work with you present something and then give it to you for consideration and help you complete that purchase at a later stage. So you see that a little bit in that there's kind of that inflection point as well, that organizational challenge. How do I get my organization to rally around this idea of offering digital selling tools, right? Those very common words that sound scary to individuals that are responsible for that revenue. But bringing that to life and bringing that together and helping them recognize that these are helping everyone, both in terms of the acquisition of new customers, the acquisition of revenue, and the completion of that purchase that really meets that customer where they're looking to meet you.
Yeah. I'd like to add one example there still, if I may, Alice, because I saw that nobody answered adoption, and Matt touched it. Now we have to change the organization. I think key aspect of these transformational projects, basically, that's what you're doing, is also positioning everything right. So with one other client, what we did is we just said, okay, you've got a digital twin for a colleague now. Don't consider it a threat or something that you have to change, but it will help you do your job better. So it's also adoption, change management, and doing that correct. So that's, I think, an underestimated part of the transformation project.
Yeah, exactly. And cool. No, that's brilliant. And obviously, if you do have any questions of the audience, if you do have any questions, just remember to pop your questions in the Q&A chat. We really want you to get the most out of this session while our experts are discussing this. So yeah, don't be afraid to use it. Matt, let's move on to you now then. What's maybe one of the major barriers that you see that manufacturers have when it comes to starting with a portal, or maybe trying to balance the content and commerce aspect?
Yeah, it's certainly, it kind of comes from two places. One is the assumption that in our business, our product is too complex to be digitized, right? And they may take that assumption from their past experience working there and all of the time and effort typically focused on the ERP as the single system to manage inbound sales and outbound sales and sales orders and all of the manufacturing process. So the idea that changing that system then becomes the perception of how long this could take or how effective this type of change would be. I certainly would challenge everyone to think outside of that system. Right. There's a collection of modern systems out here that are ready and available to meet the market demand, to really support the idea of bringing that complexity and bringing it in a much more effective and efficient manner out to a variety of touch points. So that's certainly one. Second thing is when someone's getting started, is they forget to ask the people who are responsible for it. To ask them for their feedback. So asking the customers, what could we provide to you that would help you, help us really make our relationship more efficient, right? It might be regular customers. It could be, regular customers, or it could be occasional buyers, but it's really about talking to the people that are in front of your customer all the time, and the customers that you have on a regular basis, to understand what would make that is that relationship more beneficial between the two of you. And it's a great example. Customer here at Commerce Tools I worked with a number of years ago, they had a thesis that they took to their customer base, and their entire customer base said, "That's not at all what we wanted. I don't know why you've been working on this for 12 months. All we really wanted was this, this, and this." So that particular team tore down that effort, built up the effort around exactly what their customers wanted, and then established processes to really support, again, in their business. It was manufacturing, but it had a much more repetitive purchase. So it was an opportunity at that time to make the repetitive purchase much more efficient, right? You know what I make, you know what I produce, you know what I need on a regular basis. Why do I have to have this conversation with you regularly? So now I can establish a good, almost a volume or a transactional relationship. And then the employees that I sit with, that time spent is focused on much better things than just how many of those widgets do I need this week versus next week versus the week after, right? So moving that much more beyond just the basics of the transaction into a strategic partnership.
Yeah, maybe I can just grab the ball here. What Matt mentioned is like, ask the users, not response with technology. It's easy to respond with technology. We all know that, but ask the users. It's a common thing from the lean management to ask the employees where are the tricky parts. So finding out which tool helps at the best in the most best situation. Is from my perspective the crucial part. Anika, I don't know what you say.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would like to say not only the internal users, but specifically the external users. I see a question coming in from James that he mentioned, okay, often sales teams have traditionally older and prefer face-to-face and phone call interactions, encouraging adoption, etc. What I would like to say to that is if you include them in the roadmap and what you do first and why, you can actually have them applauding for what you're releasing for them, because it's a joint mission. You have to onboard them and have the conversation with them on how do you add value as a team, because it's you digitizing them. It's you together and working on driving revenue and growth for Sunny and with the clients. So it's a combination of clients and employees, and do it together with the both groups.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And I can see some questions already making their way into the Q&A, so it's great. So we'll make sure that we address those at the end, and if not, we'll follow up. But yeah, definitely want to leave some time at the end to answer those. Okay, fantastic. Dominic, it will be great, obviously, to get your input from a perhaps a systems perspective and even content. What is the sort of the biggest roadblock that you see manufacturers facing at the moment?
Yeah, now it comes back to the discussion about techniques. So I just opened my own gap here. No worries. We go into that. So yeah, from my perspective, the thing is that as I mentioned before, that there's not the greenfield approach. That everywhere is technique, but at the end, it's like asking the right people what is helping to growth is the important thing. So from my perspective, the worst thing what you can do is that you are thinking in a monolithic situation, which means one fits all, and everybody, the internals and the external users, have to adopt the functionality of a tool. And that's, from my perspective, the worst thing you can do. You invest tons of money to tweaking, try to tweak, but at the end it won't work, and also it won't help to building up resilience. So, which means that if you go in the world of non-monolithic, maybe API based environment, where the tools with the best functionality for the work what has to do, so CMS, commerce, whatever, search, for example, is in a harmonized world, so to say. That leads you to resilience on the one hand side, also be ready for the future, that you can plug into another tools, whatever, you can scale up or try things out. So it's by the way common in the technology world now that you're trying things. You just grab something from GitLab, plug it in, try and error sometimes, right? And that's the thing, also some kind of a change in the paradigm to utilize tools. So, and that's the thing what in B2B it's also has to be done, and you have to be prepared for that. The ecosystem has to be prepared to be agile, flexible, composable, and has to be orchestrated. So that's the, let's say, the playground we are facing with.
Yeah. If I can add to that, Dominic, so if you look at manufacturing specifically, a lot of the bigger corporations do a lot of mergers, acquisitions. So the landscape is scattered, I'd say. There's a lot of different systems in place, PIMs, ERPs, CRMs, and you have to connect and integrate across all of those, or come up with a strategy for scaling across the different sites and across the different regions. What's your take on that?
Yes. This composability approach, which means that over a sudden you can have you are facing, for example, with a new tool which you have to use. If it's a merger, for example, it's only possible if you have an environment, an ecosystem where you can plug into this. And that's, for example, it's so important that like with commerce tools, for example, that you are flexible, feeding your information into some some other tools like feeding or consuming from Magnolia, whatever. Or also, I mentioned this topic of search, where, for example, from my perspective, search is a super underestimated thing. If you're using search in the right way, you can plug into search into, for example, Magnolia, into commerce tools and other systems, even in chatbots, for example. So that's the things you have to think about in an B2B environment. And at the end, this is only possible if you're going into a orchestrated environment and not in a monolithic way, so to say.
Yeah. And the other part that I also want to tie into, because you kind of presented a nice hook there, is the digital maturity of your organization. And the technical capabilities that you have within your organization also matter a lot when in the technical setup that you eventually choose. So kind of meet you where you're at is kind of what I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That fits perfectly. Yeah. But Matt, what you say in this context?
How do I want to answer this?
Okay.
There's just so much that we could do with this.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. That's the point with flexibility at this point. So which means that,
So flexibility, when you come from a world in B2B, traditional systems, right? We all know, I came from Oracle, SAP and Oracle and Microsoft are some of the three biggest ERP players, right? So this whole idea of flexibility is just such a foreign concept. And in some cases in B2B becomes, this almost this shock concept, where you perceive that you're going to get in this decision paralysis. If it can do everything, it can't do anything, right? Just like that, which is not true at all. And I think what we've been focused on, and what many of us in kind of this, Dominic, you brought up composable space, these modern vendors, that include Google and include Amazon, AWS and others, Microsoft having significant investments around this as well. It's this idea of, taking something, right, adopting things that really fit inside of the business that are really comfortable and natural, and then innovating from there. So flexibility is about the innovation. It's about being opinionated enough to bring something to bear that drives a positive benefit inside of the business, but ultimately then becomes innovative, and then people can see it go quickly. Yep. And then the flexibility then becomes so much less scary, right? Because then the idea of, the typical sales meeting on Monday morning, or if wouldn't it be great if we could have something like this, right? And once people start getting comfortable with the fact that they can bring those ideas forward and they can see them in less than 18 months at $1 million or €1 million, they start really getting comfortable with something like that, right? We put the hands back in the power of the business as opposed into the vendor's ecosystem of SI and budgets and projects and asking for every little piece of money to get the project done.
I like, Matt, the way you're tying. So you're calling it innovating and flexibility, and basically that's what you're doing here. And if you look back to where we started, if it's going to be a portal about self-service and efficiency, that's one. But if you want to differentiate yourself and make sure you have the best customer experience and experiment and learn and innovate, your technical setup should match that. So that's basically what we're saying, and you should be able to have the flexibility and scalability to work with that. So that's the architecture that you should choose.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Really, really great points. And I think, would it be a webinar in 2025 if we didn't venture? It's got it'd be great to kind of put a question, kind of a quick fire question to all of you. What features, AI features, are you seeing that are supporting manufacturers in the B2B portal space? But we're going to try and avoid buzzwords, but we want to kind of tie real value, or maybe potential revenue opportunities. So it would be great to get kind of your inputs. Janinka, did you want to go first?
Well, yeah, sure. One thing that I know about industrials, manufacturers, a lot of the technical details and the technical info and the specifications, they play a very important role in the buying decision. So that's on the front end of the funnel, or the first bit of the funnel. And I think AI, with all the technical documentations, all the databases, all the information that we have, can really enhance the customer experience when it comes to not searching. I'm not calling it search anymore, but help me find the answer for my context. So even guided selling as we know it today, I think might be different. And even finding the right support. For example, if you have you sell materials, you're in the materials business, and you would like to your materials are being sold and people are using those materials to create something. Sometimes something goes wrong, right? So you have a situation where you have to reverse engineer what went wrong. Wouldn't it be great if like an agent could help you figure out what went wrong using all the knowledge and all the data that is available? So you have an application of AI in the service aspect of your portal, because you'll only give it to existing clients using all the data, all the specifications, all the knowledge that you already have, and then presenting it in a very customer-friendly way. So that, for me, are the use cases that I think would really add value and innovate in the market. And that's where I see, well, just one example and then many more. But
Amazing. And Dominic, I can see you nodding. What do you say?
I totally agree. I'm totally agree. I would add prediction as we talk about return on invest or how to growth. A prediction in kinds of selling will be a very, very valuable point. I see the question about how long we have human interaction in purchasing. So from my perspective, there will be human interaction in purchasing, but on the relevant topics. So which means that, for example, commodity products, which are recycling every whatever week, if a machines need that in the B2B manufacturing environment, will not be negotiated by humans. They will negotiate by, so to say, agents or whatever. And the human itself, which sets the definition of where to buy, which point in time, and to which price. All of this negotiation of the long tail of these commodity products, for example, will be running automatically. So this will run automatically by system to system, and the procurement person can concentrate on the complex questions about big machines, whatever. So that's my thing on this point. So which means that the human interaction will be concentrate on relevant points.
Nice. And Matt, what about yourself?
Yannick and Dominic did a nice job here. The thing I'd say though is that, when you start thinking about complex products, there's a question about, effectively, products, where it comes out with a non-standard product every time, or a non-skewable or a commoditized product every time. When you start thinking about that, one of the challenges as we think about B2B is that, B2C commerce has been around for 25, 30 years, right? So when we think about the products and the vendors in the space that have been there to support the buying journey, it's a very mature space. It's evolved over the decades, and now it's going through its evolution with AI. For somebody that's coming out and starting for the first time or really looking to optimize, AI is a great way to really move through that journey much, much quicker and de-risk the concerns about, am I putting the right product information? Am I answering the right questions? Am I giving everybody the appropriate things? Because when you start thinking about content and commerce, you're always in traditional commerce or non-AI powered commerce, you're thinking about, did I place it in the right place? Mm-hmm. Did I make it available? Is it easily accessible? Does it support the buying journey? Is it technical? Is it marketing? Is it just enough? And when you start having to skip all of that decision making and it's available through AI, you now then have the ability for someone who's comfortable with the technology to just ask the question and get it across. And then we, instead of having a traditional role that sits there and analyzes search queries, the most frequently searched terms, and how do I then respond to that? It's because it's learning and it's helping us. We can still ask it those types of questions, but at the same time, we can then instead of having to decide and build content or have this defined process to augment and see if it works and A/B test it, you can just simply add content into that language model and help it learn and help it make a better decision in terms of getting that potential or that existing customer through the buying journey. Flip side to that, Dominic mentioned, one of the things that we, again, very common in ERP, very common in merchandising and in consumer business is planning and suggested replenishment, right? So AI just simply pre-populating, we've got a few customers that have, yes, it is industrial manufacturing, but the buying pattern changes over time based on the seasonality. Think about food products.
Yes.
And raw ingredients for food products. So it changes seasonally. So if it's now thinking about that and seeing, instead of buying a traditional planning solution, fine, put it in the cloud, sell it to you in a 3-year license, whatever. But it's still an algorithm that someone configured and it's fixed based on the data that goes into it. AI now becomes a much more commoditized and much more available technology to really enhance the business without having to plan, procure, acquire, fine tune, implement, a large system that's dedicated for a task that honestly, over time the value will go down as AI continues to learn, even in private learning models. So I think there's so many opportunities. Dominic, thank you for pointing out composability. The way that so many of us have built our technology has made snapping AI just so naturally into it. So so many of these problems that we dealt with 10 years ago just simply don't exist anymore. So we've got the opportunity becomes the fun part. What can we do? Everything. What do you want to do? Let's kind of sort that out. How can we be successful? And ultimately, how can we drive to the ROI?
Yeah. Final thing I'd like to add to that, Matt, because I totally agree with the predicting and the forecasting part, is also with a lot of companies moving to Internet of Things solutions and their products and their machines and their spare parts related to that. I think that's also a very important aspect to keep in mind, because that's the part where prediction and forecasting and making sure that you kind of prioritize orders, or at least put them together already, and you just need someone to say, yes, I approve. I think that's where we can still see a lot of progress.
AI on the other side to say that order's a little bit bigger this week. You might want to look at it more instead of such a manual process, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, there's some really great points there. And the Q&A has actually exploded, which is brilliant. So just before we move on to the Q&A, obviously, thank you all for your insights. It's been fantastic. If anybody that's watching today is interested in diving a little bit more deeper on a specific use case, and we have an Ullman, we'll have a webinar about the Ullman case study. It's a leading pharmaceutical packaging manufacturer based in Germany. The webinar will be in German, just to let everybody know. But if you are interested, just head over to that poll tab and click yes, count me in. Right, let's move on to the Q&A. We've got a lot of questions, so please do vote for your favorites, because I'll pick those first. But as mentioned, we will follow up individually just to answer your questions. So, this question's got a lot of attention. There's a lot of talk about immerse commerce within B2C. The B2C customer should feel that he's in the physical shop and get the same feeling online that we get in the physical shop. So it's kind of around that bridging the online and offline experience. Do you think that there's a difference here between B2C and B2B? Who'd want to jump in on that one? And thanks for your question, Katja.
That's a big one. I love online and offline. I'm a big, I've worked in both worlds quite a bit in my career. So what I'd say is that many of the customers that we certainly have, again, you're thinking about, how do I bring forward that experience? What is the experience, right? First, define what is the experience of actually doing that. Think about, let's talk about consumer. Everyone knows that the Apple Store is a different retail experience, right? So that really drove kind of the challenge in retail, which is, are we an Apple-oriented store, or are we a traditional retailer with a fixed till point in the back of the store, right? So that drove a lot of thought process around how does somebody touch and feel and acquire that particular technology. And then how do you then turn around and translate that online? A little bit more difficult now that you don't have, the experience of walking in and the full immersive video screen at the end. Right. A lot of attempts in the consumer space to bring that forward. But when you start, let's bring this back down to something tangible, industrial manufacturing. If you think about the consumer experience, of buying furniture, right? That's probably the most prevalent example that comes out that same side. We've got a luxury retailer, that's, based in the US, but sells globally. And if you start going down through the complexity of your buying choices, it starts to feel a little bit like an industrial computer or a bespoke compressor that's installed in an industrial context, right? But ultimately, you're going through that. How do you help somebody go through the experience and feel like they're getting what they want, right? That's when you start thinking about the newer technologies, right? Many people experimented with virtual reality or augmented reality to place furniture into your home through the use of your device, right? I'm being old right now and holding my giant iPad just to see exactly what it would look like. But it's this idea of bringing forward a lot of that visualization concept and being able to then bring that information out in a commoditized way. So if we're manufacturing something and we're a component or we're a completed asset that then goes into something larger or an industrial facility, right? That entire process is digitized. So how do we then take that and extend it out to them so they can see it and experience it and see it? How is it going to get there? How is it going to get in? Right? It's all this visualization. And I'm sure Janinka and Dominic could talk about some of the partners that we all have that work in the space specifically to help the visualization, help that experience and help you drive in there. You're never going to get the shop in shop. You're never going to get the idea. But if we start thinking about what is when someone goes to the facility, goes to your customer and performs these particular tasks to help them through the buying journey, what is that like? Where are they standing? How are they doing that? And then how do I then take elements of that and bring it into the experience and then augment that with some technology that's more meaningful to a digital interaction than a human interaction?
What I like about that, Matt, is that you're saying, so you have to look at the digital buying experience, but don't step into the pitfall of actually doing a one-on-one. So I'm building a replica of whatever. I really like the example of a high-tech machine builder. What you do with a high-tech machine, like a production line for food, for example, you sell those. Those are typically very long industrial machines that have to have a place in a big production site and in a big hall. You would like to know how it would fit and if it fits at all, and if you can still walk around it, for example. Use augmented reality to then place your design, your technical specification, and place it in the existing hall. So that would be like a way to go about it. To kind of give an example of what you just meant.
Yeah, I just want to add one short point. So it's a kind of the scalability of the information architecture, which means that not every B2B customer has set up all AR glasses, whatever. So as you both mentioned, that the important thing is to find and combine the right parts, for example, for a big machine. So for me, it's information architecture. It's the beginning of collecting all of the relevant information and at least represented it in a human easy way without AI and all and artificial intelligence. So there's all steps above. So we can say that the basic thing is to identify the real needed part for a big machine and have with a 3 clicks journey to get it into the basket, right? So that's the basic thing should a portal have to build ROI growth, so to say.
Just on that one, Dominic, we've got a question that I think would be perfect for you to answer as well here. Is there an alternative approach to portal adoption where it can be implemented in layers? For example, starting with a portal for simple invoicing and payment, and then gradually expanding to include transactional e-commerce channel sales. How can this phased approach impact the overall success and ROI of the portal implementation? Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's exactly connected from my previous answer. So which means that you start with at least coming back to search, sorry about that, but it's the important thing that if search do a good job, you will find the right information. And that's the important thing. So you start with finding the right tools at the right time, combining every set of sources in one portal, and then you can drive growth. Again, like commodity products, for example, they just to add a notification that one of the parts has to be changed in the next 2 weeks can be a driver for growth. And if you just hit one button to get all the relevant parts of the machine which has to be changed into the basket of, for example, commerce tools, and you just hit another click and or even automatically renewed and rebuy the product itself, it helps to have all of the things.
If I can add to that, Alice, I think it very much depends on the business case. So you would have to sit down with your team and your specific context to really figure out what is the added value that we would like to bring with this project. And how do we then construct the roadmap in terms of features and functionality? And how do we build up that success gradually? Because yes, it doesn't have to be one big bang. And you have to have small successes, and there's like you have to have the smaller successes, but also the big wins, and balance them and take everyone along the journey. So it's also a big kind of digital transformation and change project, where you have to really take a flexible approach there.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
The most critical aspect of that is if it's the first portal, it has to deliver value, discrete value that drives user adoption. You know, the example in the question around invoicing payments. If your end customers can see the benefit of doing that, right? And it's supported by the individuals in your organization that are interacting with them about how much easier this is or how much better this is. And it's got validation and it's got a feedback cycle from your customers, then you can ensure the adoption of that technology as you start moving to the next initiative. Dominic, you talked about big monoliths. I talk about SAP ERPs and the projects that run for 12, 18 months, 7 years, right? When we start thinking about this agile approach to releasing capabilities, that gives us a much greater assurance that our investments are more discrete, and yet they can be more successful, and then can move people through the change management process, because everything here has to go at kind of a human pace. It has to go at a pace which is consistent with how you interact with your customers, how frequently the sale occurs, right? It's not like B2C commerce. B2C commerce is all about, I'm here and doing millions in euros of marketing to get people to come in the door. This is about taking your customers through a change, just the same as it's taking your coworkers through a change.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, and then we can move forward. But avoid errors, avoid human errors. Just like you have to. And I'm a German, you know. I bring this fax joke now that you have the orders by a fax machine, and you have to type in, or with a human interaction, typing something in from manually from one tool to another. To avoid the human error here drives your ROI. So it's a simple tweak. You can just start with that. Don't use email forms for commodity products, right? That's the beginning. So if you are in the challenge of need a new portal, think about that. Alice, please.
Who'd have thought faxes and AI would have come into the same conversation? He said it's 25, and yes, faxes were just mentioned. Look, I can see some people have to go because we are slightly over, but thank you very much for joining. But I'd like to just squeeze in maybe one more question for those that can hang on, because I think it's a great question. This one's from Michael. How important is a modern UI UX experience on a modern B2B manufacturing portal compared to a fancy state-of-the-art B2C experience? Or another way to put it, how sexy should a B2B portal be versus B2C?
It should be a reflection of your brand, right?
Yeah.
And and it should be an appropriate percentage of the project to make it usable and functional and have the opportunity to be able to iterate it over time. But when it launches, it should feel like your primary marketing assets that sit in front of your customers. It should feel like your brochures. It should feel like the items that you put in front of your customers. So it's very natural and it's logical, and it feels like it's a system that people want to use and that will continue to be invested in. And then it should move through, more and more balancing between functionality and beauty, right? It doesn't have to be amazing and perfect, but it does need to be consistent and reflect the quality of product that you put in front of your customers and the quality of that experience.
I think that regarding the brand, I agree. So yeah, it should be a reflection of your brand. But I also think it's an opportunity to create the flows, not let your software dictate how you present it to your client, but make sure that you present a user experience. So the interface and the steps and the flows, connect them to your client's experience, not your internal way of organizing stuff. So I think in terms of sexy or not sexy, that being put your customer central and make sure that that's reflected in the portal as well.
Yeah, that's exactly the loop we found now. The closing point was put the users in front, not the technology. That's exactly the point from my perspective. And also you also both mentioned that it's like that, not the technique should drive the user experience. It's just the way around. So that let the users experience the right flow. And if sexy is defining for everybody different, so to say, yeah.
So in summarizing it, it could also be like a dissatisfier, right? So if you have a portal experience that is like, yeah, it doesn't really work. How do I go about this? And it's like a dissatisfier for you, then it will also not help you drive adoption. So there's like a base level that you have to meet, and then you can really succeed and do even better. Yeah.
So get your brilliant basics right first, and then add the sexiness on top. It's the takeaway there. So no, that's brilliant. I think that brings us to the end of today's session. So thanks again to our fantastic panel of experts, and thank you for all of the viewers and the engagement. It's been really good, and I hope that you've been able to take some fresh ideas. For those questions that we didn't get round to, fear not, we will follow up with an answer from our experts. But yeah, thanks again for joining, and we hope to see you along our next webinar.